Moving on now, after years of icy conflict, relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran seem to be thawing now. In the latest, Iran's foreign minister, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, has told Al Jazeera TV that Tehran is now ready to restore diplomatic ties with Saudi Arabia. The minister further said that he believed in the importance of broad regional dialogue that included Saudi, Turkey and Egypt to solve the region's problems. These comments underscore how eager Iran is in restoring relations with Saudi Arabia, now which have remained frozen since 2016. When protesters attacked Saudi embassy in Tehran after Riyadh executed a prominent Shia cleric who had allegedly meddled in Saudi's domestic affairs. Riyadh accused Tehran of failing to protect its diplomatic property and withdrew its diplomatic mission. Since then, the two countries have been on the opposite sides of pretty much everything, including regional conflicts in Yemen, Syria and Lebanon. Iran has been trying to repair ties in recent years to some success. In 2021, delegations of both countries met more times than the previous 5 years put together. Iran's reasons to improve relations stem from its economic agenda rather than political. Saudi is the largest country in the Middle East, as is Egypt, and both would be a welcome business partner for Iran, whose economy has been crippled by US sanctions. It's not just Iran. Saudi Arabia too has expressed interest in normalizing relations. Just last month, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister said that Riyadh was hoping for relations with Iran based on cooperation and mutual respect. And while no breakthrough has been made yet, the relations between the two countries definitely seem to be on a road to recovery.
That these outstanding issues be addressed.
And for more on this, Syed Mustafa Koshchesh is a political analyst and editor-in-chief of Iran's Fars news agency, is joining us live from Tehran. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, as per Iran's foreign minister, Iran is willing to restore diplomatic ties with Saudi Arabia. How do you assess this?
Well, thanks for having me. Well, ever since this new administration of President Raisi came to office, one of the main priorities on the agenda of this government is developing economic ties with the neighboring states in order to reinvigorate the Iranian economy and diffuse the U.S. sanctions. This would happen and could happen only after de-escalation of tensions with mainly Saudis. Unfortunately, after 4 rounds of talks, the Saudis are still thinking tactically about these talks with Iran. What Iran wants is a problem settlement, a conflict resolution with the Saudis throughout the region and over all regional issues that the two sides have with each other. But the Saudis are only thinking of ending the Yemen war and are seeking for Iran's aid and assistance to this end. So I believe the stage is set right now for the Saudis to level up their objectives and think on another stage.
Right. I was in fact just going to come to that. What can you tell us about the impact of this shift on the region, if this were to happen, and on the regional conflicts in Yemen, Syria and Lebanon, like I mentioned earlier?
Well, first of all, Iran has always stressed in these bilateral talks, mainly held in Iraq, that it's a good friend of the Yemeni Ansarullah movement and the Yemeni nation, but it doesn't decide for anyone. These are the Yemenis that should make the decision. And the Saudis, have been at war with Yemen, killing hundreds of thousands, including civilians. But they've run out of, budget and men and soldiers to continue the war. And on the opposite side, they cannot leave it because it would damage their reputation. And the Yemenis have stressed that they want reparation. They want a prosecution of war criminals that have killed at least over 100,000 civilians in Yemen. Therefore, we are encouraging the Saudis to work closely and honestly with the Yemenis, and we are encouraging the Yemenis to consider the situation, but we don't make the decision.
Right, absolutely.
But when it comes to the broader picture, the region, if the Saudis agree to that, then there could be much, restoration of peace throughout the region. There could be economic recovery for many other nations in the region. The Saudis were in charge of ISIS terrorists that appeared in this region, according to Joe Biden, according to Michael Flynn, according to General Martin Dempsey, who was the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff of Obama, and according to many others. These were the Saudis that created and nurtured the Wahhabi Salafi terrorists in Syria and Iraq. After doing all these, plans against Iran and Iranian allies in this region, in Syria and Iraq, they failed, and they joined Donald Trump's plans, and they again failed. Now, I believe the Saudis should be smart enough to understand that this is an occasion that could not be repeated because their plans have failed against Iran. And on the other hand, as the Vienna talks are moving ahead, they know that they would be sidelined if they do not restore ties with Iran, especially considering that this Democrat government of the United States has not buried the hatchet with the bin Salman family. So I believe the Saudis would soon be smart to go after the way that the UAE went to mend ties with Iran.
Right. Also, sir, with Erdogan announcing revision of its ties with Saudi Arabia, how do you expect this dynamic to play out in the region?
Well, if Iran and Saudi Arabia could mend their ties, then I believe the Turkish government, President Erdogan, as well as Egyptians would join these two in order to prevail peace in the region. The United States is leaving the region after that scandalous and withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Afghanistan. And now that the U.S. time in Iraq has been up and they need to leave Iraq fast, they are very much working on withdrawing forces from Syria, and they have already evacuated several, bases in Qatar and removed the top echelon of their sent fund from Doha to the United States. It seems that the region is experiencing new equations now, and the balance of power is changing. Iran has been a main power in this region, and it has proved time and again throughout the past 1 or 2 decades that it's the most powerful, and it has, protected its allies in Syria and Iraq, as well as in Lebanon. Therefore, I believe the region is expected to see new developments with regard to relations of Iran and some other countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, as well as Egypt.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us with all your inputs on this.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.